Welcome back to another edition of Down to the Wire, again with my NHL analyst, Nolan Thode. Nolan, how are you doing today?
I'm counting 10 episodes, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Come so far. I'm doing great. What about you?
We've been having great March Madness, great weather. And actually, it's a funny story. This happened, I think, like a week or two ago, but I was walking home from school and there is this guy that, I was crossing the street. I was listening to music, probably Maroon 5. And
Probably.
yeah, probably a likely story. And, he rolls down his window and yells at me like, "Hey, I watch your podcast." So I didn't know who it was. I have no clue. I'm not going to make any assumptions because it was literally just a random guy, probably a teenager, more so like an adult in a way, like a young adult. So, very, very exciting to see someone recognize me because I think I had my sunglasses on and, I just had my AirPods in as well. So very exciting to see if that guy's tuning in. Awesome. If not, I'm not going to force him to, but that was my weird story for sure.
Yeah, shout out to the heckler.
Yeah, whoever just said, "Hey, I watch your podcast." I was like,
Yeah,
"All right, cool, thank you."
Even though you're wearing sunglasses, I don't think that's enough of disguise. You got a pretty
I know, I'm getting disguised by the paparazzi.
Yeah, I know.
I practice my signature.
You're going to have to hide in your home if we get all these fans coming up to you.
Exactly. But yeah, 10 episodes. It's continuing. So this will be fun. I'm enjoying, reading over headlines throughout the week. And we kind of, are getting better at it each week. So I like it.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Getting into the headlines, actually, last Monday, Thatcher Demko made 18 saves in the first period, I believe, against the Senators. And that actually was the most this season in a single period by a Canucks goalie without allowing a goal. So, the Sens having high pressure on the Canucks, trying to bang one in. But, Thatcher Demko, he was named he is going to be named the star of the month for just his superb play. The Canucks are now back into the North Division race. So it will be exciting to see how well Vancouver plays.
Yeah, exactly. For the 18 saves, Ottawa kind of plays a style where, they try to get everything on net. They get a lot of shots in some games. But, no discredit to Demko. Like you said, first star of the month, he's been absolutely incredible, single-handedly almost, bringing the Canucks back into this playoff race. They've been missing a couple key guys. Peterson's missed some time. But, he's just been solid every single game, giving them the best chance to win.
It seems like this was kind of a mercy rule at this point, but the Capitals won big against Buffalo 6-0, and fortunately enough for Sabres, I guess, the Caps put on their fourth line and their third line on the power play. So I guess you could say that, it was some sort of mercy rule to show some respect for your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. Teams typically, if they're up big and they go on a late power play, they're not going to, roll the number one guys. I remember last year, though, I think it was Nashville, Dallas. I'm not too sure. But one of the teams was blowing the other out and they went on the power play and they still rolled out their top power play and the other coach was mad about it. Came out in the headline. So, yeah, it just does kind of seem like the sportsman thing to do, to just kind of let your depth guys play the power play.
And unfortunate for the Sabres fans, the Sabres have now been shut out as many times as they've won this year. So they have 6 wins on the year, and they've been shut out 6 times. So the worst keeps getting worse. Hopefully there are some bright years ahead. I don't know what to say. I'm just speechless. I can't. There's not much for me to say.
Yeah, I know. I think we've said it all at this point. They fired the coach. So maybe a little bit of a change in the culture. I think, a lot of people aren't really realizing how much they're missing Linus Ullmark. He was solid when they're in net. They only have 6 wins, but only one of those is not Ullmark. So, just super tough for the Sabres to do anything. And, this whole season has just been really frustrating for all of them.
And that was also the first career shutout for Vitek Vanacek, the young Caps goalie, who seems to be a solid goalie. He currently has 100 fantasy points in our league right now. So it seems like they'll be building around him for the future. And I know for me, going into this season, that was one of the question marks I had about the Washington Capitals was how good is their goaltending? Because previously Samsonov, didn't really prove to me that he would be, I guess, a 1B option, or you could argue that he's now the backup. But it seems like Vitek Vanacek is the goalie for the Capitals to build around.
Exactly. I think the only question with Samsonov was, kind of just the experience, how much you trust him playing a lot of games. And, this season, some people thought he could handle it. Some people thought he couldn't. He ended up, having a hard time with COVID and having a hard time, but he's kind of gotten back on his feet. And, Capitals fans have to be excited about this young tandem for the future.
The Florida Panthers came back from a 3-1 deficit and won 6-3. At this point, they were on a 4-game winning streak, and they're actually probably one of the hottest teams in the league because if we look at their last 10, they are 7-3-0, and they're right up there, only 4 points back of the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, they aren't totally out of it, but Carolina is on their tails. Florida right now has 44 points and Carolina has 43. So, there is that battle for second place there. And it seems as though that Tampa is going to run away with first in the Central Division.
Yeah, I think, all those three teams are kind of locked for the playoffs in my eyes, especially at this time in the season. But, just how the rest of the division and even within those top three will be an interesting storyline. Florida's just been, incredible this year. And, they're just getting goals from everywhere. Obviously, their top guys are contributing, but, the depth pieces are stepping up as well.
And I never really thought that Chris Drieger would, I guess, be better than Sergei Bobrovsky, because Bobrovsky, he had that down abysmal year last season, and I guess no one really thought he could recover from it.
Yeah, it was a tough season. Everyone was, laughing at the contract. But, with Drieger and Bobrovsky, they kind of, they're allowed to run with the hot hand since neither of them, is, heads and shoulders above the other. So it's interesting, and it seems to be working for them so far.
Geno Malkin accomplished 1,100 career points as Pittsburgh beat Boston 4-1. They, Geno Malkin had 1 goal and 1 assist. And actually that at the time was Pittsburgh's 6-game win streak. And if we look currently, they got a point in their last game, but they're 7-2-1. They're again, another solid team that I think will be a playoff lock. Especially with teams underneath them. You got Boston, Philly, but Philly's slumping, and the Rangers are playing their best hockey. So I think Pittsburgh is going to be a team to watch for in the playoffs.
Exactly. Now that we're in the second half of the season, only 4 teams per division make the playoffs. So it's going to be super interesting. And I think the East is probably, number one in my eyes, just because, you talk about Pittsburgh, Boston, Philadelphia, the Rangers, only, 2 or 3 of those guys are going to get into the playoffs, if you're assuming Washington's going to keep it up, and the Islanders have been great so far as well. So just, see how that, continues, and congrats on Geno for 1,100.
We learned on Tuesday that the draft will go on. There is no moving back, and there's questions as to if, with the lack of scouting, if the draft would be pushed back. But I think because of the rules that are in place, that would change, I guess, eligibility. Then there would be contract signing questions, I believe. So, I think there was too much variables in play for the NHL to think about. So I think that's one of the main reasons why the draft will go on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you for those reasons. We talked earlier, on a previous episode, how you and I both like the idea of moving it back, moving it a little bit, just because give the scouts a little bit more time, give the prospects a little more time as well to, prove themselves. But, we're going to have this draft, and it's going to be super interesting. I think it'll be a really fun one to look at, 20 years later, once all these guys' careers have played out, and just, see the variety of, where players are going. Talk about how bad Buffalo's been. It's definitely, the year that you want the number 1 pick, probably the least that I can remember in the last 10 years.
It sucks because there's really no rules for you to defer any of your picks to next year's.
Yeah, exactly. No, if they could take the first round pick next year, a little bit better scouting, I'm sure they would rather do that. But, it'll be interesting to see who they take, top 5 this season.
And really, there are many players, top 5 that are in play. We talk about Owen Power here a lot in Canada, but there's also Matty Beniers, Luke Hughes. There's a lot of players that could be drafted number 1. Like, this is one of the special years where I think since 2017, there hasn't been a clear-cut number 1.
Exactly. Typically you go into the draft kind of knowing who the number 1 pick's going to be. And then, from there on out, it's sort of, making your picks and seeing if your mock draft matches up with what happens. But this year, you could even go 0 for 30, 32 in the mock draft, just because, Seattle's obviously, I think, in the draft this year.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know where guys are going to go. You don't know how high some scouts are on certain people. And yeah, it'll shape up in the coming months.
Speaking of the Buffalo Sabres, they played the Devils on Tuesday night, and it was one of the interesting games because both teams were coming in on an 11-game losing streak. Buffalo's was 11 just general games losing streak, but Devils were coming in on a 11-game home losing streak. And as we know, the Devils won that at home. And, like I mentioned, the Sabres just need to do something to make something good. Like everything is so negative around there.
Exactly. Everything's so negative, and it's just really, there's no bright spot at the end of the tunnel, really. The team that they're putting out there right now it doesn't look like one that's going to, win you a game. So it's tough, and we'll see how long this losing streak continues.
And I think New Jersey, I love their core right now with, Hughes, Hischier. If Hischier's injured, the Devils are doing this without Hischier. And, I think the Devils are going to be a wagon in, a couple seasons with the core of Hughes, Hischier. And then you got Sharon Govich, who's been hype. You also got, I think, Jesper Bratt. I love Miles Wood. And then on the back end, Subban. Who doesn't love Subban? Exactly. Especially from a Habs fan.
No, for sure. Former Norseman.
Yeah, exactly. But then you got, some players like Ty Smith who made their season appearance this season. So that's definitely an exciting core for Devils fans to be excited about.
Yeah, and Blackwood and Ned as well. It looks like a really exciting future. I think, like you said, the wagon in the coming years, I'm really excited to see, hopefully, Hughes can be that, elite first line center, go out and get the points. And then Nico can, maybe take a step back and be a nice second line center and, develop his two-way game, because I think he has potential to be, a maybe future Selke guy in his career.
We had two big press conferences coming from two major Canadian clubs on Tuesday. First of all, Kyle Dubas had a press conference, said that he's mostly focused on acquiring a forward at the trade deadline. And it seems as though that it's kind of weird in a way that you're looking to acquire a forward. And we learned today that, the Leafs lost Travis Boyd on waivers, but Boyd wasn't really in the lineup at all. But it's weird that you're acquiring a forward rather than a defenseman because, like we know, the Leafs defense kind of falls apart in the playoffs. So I guess it could be potentially for bottom six scoring because I don't think, Spezza's been really good this year. Kerfoot's been decent, but, we could talk about Ilya Mikheyev, who's kind of popping in and out. And then he also said that he's willing to trade a top prospect, but he also said that without hesitation. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And he also said that a rental player makes most sense due to the flat cap, but he is open to a hockey deal if it makes sense.
Yeah, I think for me, I wouldn't mind seeing Taylor Hall come to the Leafs. He's been miserable in Buffalo. If he can, clear that 14-day thing and go play for the number one team in the North Division, I think that's something he would like. His whole career, he's been chasing, a playoff team. He's only made them once, and that was when he was the Hart winner for New Jersey. There's just lots of options. We live in Toronto area, so as soon as Dubas says that they want to trade for a forward, we're going to see mock trades for, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, all these players, because the Leafs fans think that they're going to get everyone. But it'll be interesting to see, leading up to the deadline, what Dubas actually chooses to do.
Well, actually, let me pull up one of the Twitter conversations I had with a Leafs fan, and this was really odd. So I tweeted out, I was responding to Chris Johnston's tweet. Mm-hmm. Hold on. I'm just pulling it up right now. And, Chris Johnston on March 20th, right? That's when Jack Campbell shut out the Calgary Flames. And, Chris Johnston said Jack Campbell's personal shutout streak reaches 133 minutes, 27 seconds as he posts consecutive shutouts 3 weeks apart. Now, that was obviously given with an injury. So I replied saying, this would be interesting as to what Toronto does here with their goaltending situation. Because, do you ride with someone who is slumping like Freddie Anderson? He's actually injured right now. He's day to day. Or do you ride with Jack Campbell, who comes back and seems like he's doing all right, shuts out the Calgary Flames, who seem to be actually doing really hot, pun intended, under Daryl Sutter. And then this guy by the name of James Blackley at Kingstonian 84. So then he replies to me saying, what I think the Leafs should do is deal Freddie now and then acquire a guy like Reimer and roll with both the rest of the way. So that's kind of bold because if we all remember, Reimer and the Leafs certainly didn't have a marriage per se. You know, we all remember 2013, and then it kind of seemed to spiral out from there.
Yeah, Leafs fans, I don't know if they'd love that move, on a paper, 1-for-1 level, but they like Reimer in Toronto. Well, as all the Leafs fans that are my friends, they love Reimer, and they'll never say a bad word about him, even if he was a part of that collapse. But yeah, go and train for Reimer. I think that just really puts you behind the curve. I think with Reimer and Campbell, I'm not sure if you have a Stanley Cup winning goalie there. Whereas I think Freddie, maybe not Stanley Cup winning goalie, but I do think he's just, their best shot at, that number one starter. But Jack Campbell's been phenomenal. So I would like to see him stealing more starts from Freddie in the near future.
The last presser that we're going to go over here is the Mark Bergevin presser that he did on Tuesday with the Habs. He basically said that he might not make deadline deals because of financial reasons. And if we remind ourselves, the Habs are tied up against the cap due to their offseason acquisitions. He said that he's going to replace Ben Sherratt from within the organization rather than go out and get someone. To follow that up, he said that he thinks the injury will last 6 weeks, which means that he believes Sherratt should be back before the end of the regular season. He also said that Cole Caulfield could join the Habs at the trade deadline. That's dependent on how well Wisconsin does in the NCAA playoffs. So that's very exciting for Habs fans to see Cole Caulfield. I know for me, I've been following Wisconsin more so this season than years past due to his hype. From the shot I see, he seems like to be a pure sniper. Yeah. So if the Habs can get him going on like the power play, we saw Nick Suzuki's shot short side against Vancouver twice, actually, both Friday and Saturday. If you could put Caulfield on the other side, that's a lethal power play, in my opinion.
Exactly. He's saying he might not do a move, but if you're getting a guy like Cole Caulfield at the deadline, it's almost as if, you're making a trade and adding, a piece to your top six. I think Cole Caulfield, like you said, just absolute elite, pure goal scorer. And I think he will be that guy for the Habs. Hopefully, maybe not even just on the power play. I'd love to see him playing with Suzuki, having the two of them. I think that would be a great duo, and whoever you throw on the other wing, I think, is a recipe for success. As of Wisconsin, it's bittersweet for both of us because, we want Wisconsin and we want, our guys, Dylan Holloway for me as an Oilers fan and Cole Caulfield for you, you want them to do well in the tournament. But, saying that, you also, you'd love to see them in a Habs jersey, and, Dylan Holloway might also make an Oilers appearance at some point this year as well.
I could definitely see Dylan Holloway making his Oilers appearance before Cole Caulfield does for Montreal, simply because the Oilers are running the McDry unit. So that's basically, putting McDavid alongside of Drysdale. And if you look at their lineup on paper, it looks really thin compared to if Yamamoto is in the lineup. Then they run the McDavid, Drysdale, Yamamoto, or you could pair alongside Jesse Puljujarvi with Yamo and McDavid. But, if Yamo is out long-term, I can certainly see Dylan Holloway be playing before Caulfield.
Exactly. No, I can see Holloway coming in for Yamamoto, but also I think, he would just kind of come in. People would, hype him playing with McDavid and such, but I think he would just, settle into maybe like a third, fourth line role, kind of taking, the James Neal role. Because James Neal, he's a good player. Every once in a while, he'll score a nice goal or do a nice play, but he's just super slow. And I think, having some more speed in the bottom six could really benefit the Oilers.
Speaking of elite goal scorers, Alex Ovechkin passed Esposito with his 718th goal for sixth all-time in NHL history. He is on his way to, hopefully catching Gretzky, moving his way up the ranks. And if he does catch Gretzky, hopefully I will be there for that ceremony, because that will be certainly something I want to see.
Exactly. Just in terms of Wayne Gretzky, you think all of his records can't be touched. And for the most part, some of them I don't think will ever be touched, for the rest of, the NHL's history or in the future. But, Ovi, he's got a real shot. And I think everyone's just cheering for him each and every game to, put one in the net and keep making his way closer and closer.
We had another questionable NHL Department of Player Safety interaction with Brandon Tanev that was assessed a major penalty for boarding Jared Tenorti. I think personally, as the play unfolded, it seemed as though Tanev was kind of finishing his body check on Jared Tenorti. It didn't seem vicious at all. I didn't see. I think it was almost like a self-inflicted wound because, with Tenorti's big frame, he did get, hit, and he wasn't expecting the hit, but, Tenorti was just flipping the puck in, was probably going to go for a change, in my opinion. And, the way his body crashed alongside the board, I thought it should have been a minor penalty, sure, but a major penalty, I think, was too far.
Yeah, Brandon Tanev, he kind of has a reputation of being somewhat of a pest, but anyone who knows him knows that he's a really nice guy. So, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't trying to, be malicious or anything. It was just an awkward situation, especially against the boards. It's a tough call for them. They ended up going with the 5-minute major. You could go either way in that situation, though, I think.
And actually, Pittsburgh killed off that 5-minute major, which surprised me for sure. And that was Dan Vladar's first career NHL win. He won the game 2-1. Very fun game to watch there.
Exactly. My team, they'll appreciate the fantasy that Vladar provided for that one start. It was his first career start, even against Pittsburgh. So it was a little bit of a risk for me to pick him up that one night, but he ended up being, just outstanding. Only 1 goal against in his first career game.
We got some trade news as Mattias Ekholm. The suitors that I read were mainly Boston and Winnipeg. And like we have to mention again, does Winnipeg do that? Because they've already had to suffer a quarantine with PLD. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they would do that again. That would be very ballsy for Kevin Sheldayoff to do that. I wouldn't think that he does another quarantine trade. If American teams trade, they don't really have to worry about quarantine. At least in my I don't know, but I'm gonna go with the assumption that they don't have to worry about quarantine. But if the Jets do get Ekholm, that's a huge boost to their already, I guess you could say bleak defensive core. Dylan DeMello could probably be played on the, bottom pair, in my opinion, instead of top 4. And then I would probably put Ekholm in DeMello's spot.
Yeah, exactly. I think the exciting part about Ekholm is he's got 2 years left on his deal, not just 1. So, he's a really solid top 4 defenseman. He does a little bit of everything just really well. And for, both the Bruins and the Jets, it'd be a huge acquisition. I think Ekholm probably gets traded before the deadline. Just, Nashville season's not really going anywhere, and they can get a ton of value for a guy like that at this time.
Philip Roenick actually scored his first goal of the season. Obviously it came a little while in, but it was a empty netter. So hopefully that provides some confidence for the kid. And he actually was going on a tear there. He leads the Detroit Red Wings with 18 points. 1 goal, 17 assists. And I find that one of the more weird stats that, your first goal of the season was an empty netter.
Yeah, anything to get on the board, you think the monkey off the back, just happy for him to finally get that first one. But, you mentioned 17 assists. That's nothing to, shy away from, especially on the Red Wings. And if you're a defenseman, Roenick's having a really quietly good season, just because he plays in Detroit. And, maybe this first goal can be the start of maybe a little bit of a goal scoring tear as well.
Another good news for Detroit is that they snapped Carolina's win streak at 8 with a 4-2 win. So, anything to boost the Red Wings there, because, certainly they haven't been having the greatest season of all.
Yeah, just a win here or there just kind of keeps the players' morale up. Obviously the season's not going where, too many places for the Red Wings. So it's nice. And against a quality team, it really shows some character.
4 of the last 6 Dallas Stars games. Now, this was obviously written on Tuesday, but at the time, 4 of the last 6 Dallas Stars games have gone to overtime. So I find that crazy that's almost like a Montreal kind of scenario there, right? Where, you're getting, the loser point, but you need to secure the 2 points.
Exactly. Well, yeah, with Dallas especially, they play somewhat of a defensive style, so it's not a surprise that a lot of games, end up in a tie after regulation. I remember seeing last week Jake Ottinger, his record at the time I saw it, I think it was 4-1-6.
Oh, so God.
6 overtime losses just look crazy on the record. He's been solid this season, but yeah, they've been going to OT quite a bit and apparently not getting a ton of wins.
And actually, Tampa choked a 3-1 lead in that third period. And I believe, and actually, the Stars won that game. So I think at least. Very interesting there for Tampa. And hopefully with the Stars there, they get some offense going because, some of their players have been in a slump and they have dealt with injuries. Because I know Roope Hintz has been out for quite some time, and then he came back.
Exactly. He's just been in and out. I have him on one of my fantasy teams, not our main league. And, I get a notification every single day on his status. So, health, an important thing, especially in a season like this, to be able to compete. And they're missing some key players.
The Colorado Avalanche doubled up on the Anaheim Ducks, winning 8-4. And it was quite a night for the Saad, Kadri, and Burakovsky line as they had 7 points. So it's very hard to win when, you can't defend against one line.
Yeah, obviously it's the Anaheim Ducks, but, Colorado's just that team, I think, more than anyone else in the league that can go out there and, throw some outrageous number on the board with the guys that they have. The notifications, if you follow the Colorado Avalanche on any app, will just keep flying in. I remember, and I know they were for me. The fantasy team appreciates Burakovsky as well. We had a good week last week and, mentioning all these headlines, I'm going to bring it up.
On Wednesday, that's when the Buffalo Sabres fired head coach Ralph Krueger. The Krueger era is finally over, I guess you could say. A couple of games too late, to say the least. But, Don Granato was named the interim head coach. And I expect Kevin Adams, who is actually a first-year GM, to do an external research on head coaching candidates rather than look from within. And the favorite for me is Nate Leaman. And if we remind ourselves, Nate Leaman was the coach at the World Juniors for the Americans and won the gold medal. So I don't know. Maybe it's because he worked with young players and, the Sabres do have a lot of young players on their team. But I think Nate Leaman would fit their system really well.
Yeah, Buffalo, if you don't know much Sabres history, pretty much, Lindy Ruff, the best coach of all time for the Sabres, and he was just so solid. He eventually, I think he walked to go to the Rangers or Dallas. He left them. And, since then it's just been a coaching carousel and it's, been really frustrating to watch. So hopefully, whoever is the next guy behind the bench, can be that coach who finally, takes them out of the basement that they're kind of stuck in at the moment.
Ironically enough, speaking of basement, I'll use that because Jeff Skinner scored the last goal of the Krueger era. And as we know, he was stuck in the basement on the Sabres' fourth line. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, it's super fitting that he would be the one to score the last goal. Hopefully with the new coach, he can start to build his confidence up again. Just it seemed like him and Krueger had, a non-existent relationship.
Anders Lee is out for the rest of the regular season. He's going to have knee surgery, and I feel like that's a huge blow for the Islanders. Plays top 6 minutes, power play. He's the captain. So it's definitely going to be a struggle for the Islanders to find a hole for, Anders Lee.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't know if you've been keeping up with who the replacements have been, but Kiefer Bellows and, Oliver Wahlstrom, they've been kind of, taking the reins a little bit more, getting those minutes from him. And it's exciting to see, for Islanders fans, just any new prospect coming in, they haven't really had, hype for anyone, since Barzal. Nate Dobson's solid as well. But it'll be interesting to see how they, recover. It seems like no matter what happens to the Islanders, they find a way to win games. And, I think first in the East Division, if I'm not wrong, I think, they're not going to be sliding far from that position.
The Rangers' entire coaching staff landed on the COVID list, and yet they still won 9-0 against the Flyers. Not only did they win, but they shut out the Flyers. It doesn't seem that big of an accomplishment when you're talking about the Flyers since they've been slumping. But, to do it with, the Hartford Wolfpack, which is their American League affiliate, had their coaches come up and serve as interns. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, and 9 goals in 2 periods, it was 0-0 in the third. Just a crazy game. Flyers fans, it's been a frustrating couple of weeks for them actually. I watch a fantasy hockey podcast, it's called Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And, one of the guys, he's a Rangers fan and he doesn't really like David Quinn that much, the head coach. So maybe this 9-0 win for the, the AHL head coach, maybe makes them look at firing Quinn.
Who knows? If I were the Rangers, I would certainly roll with the Hartford Wolfpack coaching staff, just promote them because certainly it seems to work.
He's got a good resume so far.
And like you mentioned, the 9 goals between 2 periods, 7 of them came in the second period. And the guy that was making the headlines, Mika Zibanejad, he became the first player to have a natural hat trick and score all 3 types of goals. We're talking power play, even strength, and shorthanded. Obviously, missing on the empty netter, but let's be honest here. We don't really count that as a goal in a way. And plus, he had and he had 3+ assists in the same game. So what a stellar performance by Zibanejad.
Exactly. And you can go back to last year, when he scored 5 goals against the Washington Capitals. This guy, maybe he'll go on a little bit of a slump here or there, but, you can rely on Mika Zibanejad to maybe put up a Game of the Year candidate every once in a while.
And thank you, Ottawa, because let's not remember the Ottawa Senators traded Derek Broussard to the Rangers. The Senators acquired Broussard for Zibanejad. My bad, but just another mistake by Ottawa because certainly their core could have been Zibanejad, Hoffman, Carlson, and Stone. Let's not forget that, but it's not. So definitely not the best.
Had they not have made that deal, Zibanejad and Stone, that would be a lethal duo, in my opinion. They're both players that are elite offensively and defensively. What could have been for the Senators for sure.
And that Krueger, Zibanejad, and Buchnevich line had 11 points between the 3 of them. Definitely, a superb night, one that, none of us will really forget.
Yeah, exactly. 9-0's crazy. I kind of hyped up 8-4 for the Avalanche, but getting a shutout regardless and being able to put up 9 goals is just insane, especially against a rival like the Flyers are for the Rangers.
More trade news. Taylor Hall, like you mentioned, could be traded by the Sabres. That's probably the least, I guess, surprising news since he signed a 1-year deal. However, the flip side of that is the Hall I guess extension talks are, ongoing, I think. Again, he's open to mid-range extension, but to be fair, I think it would be really crazy for Taylor Hall to sign with the Sabres because of how bad they are. It seems as though he's not going to be a part of their future.
Exactly. Like I mentioned earlier, he's only made the playoffs once in his career, and it seems like a goal for him. He wants to win. No one wants to lose. So it'll be interesting to see if he does stay with the Sabres and try to, be a part of the core moving forward. So
I actually got an update on this next note here. On Thursday, there was news coming out about Kirby Dach returning to the Blackhawks lineup. He was actually a full participant in practice today. So, he's certainly coming back closer than we thought. I thought he was going to be out for the whole season, but, it seems as though he's going to make his return eventually. And what a boost that would be for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, Kirby Dach, he had a solid rookie season last year. No crazy numbers, but, it was in the playoffs against Edmonton where he kind of really proved that he was deserved of that 3rd overall pick. Lots of hype going into the World Junior Tournament. Supposed to be captain for Canada, unfortunately getting that injury versus Russia. I think everyone just wants to see him back on the ice because, he's got a lot to prove. And I think, he's an incredible talent that, we want to be seeing playing. Jamie
Drysdale made his NHL debut not alongside, but him and Zegras got their first NHL points. And, I guess I'm not too sure. Did Drysdale score that first goal? I don't know, because it seemed to be tipped. It went to Max Jones, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it went to Max Jones originally, but I think upon further review, I think it ended up going to Drysdale. So him and Zegras able to get their first career goals in the same game, future not super bright, but, at least you got those 2 pieces, to build off of for the Anaheim Ducks.
And finally, Gibson, Gibson's injured right now, but finally he sees the future upon him. It seemed bleak for the Ducks there while he was playing. I think he's in his 5th season. I could be wrong there, but, Gibson getting help offensively with Zegras and Drysdale. And, man, they're going to be such a fun team to watch.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Gibson because it seemed like the Ducks, 10 years ago, didn't really line up with Gibson's prime. 10 years ago, they were a solid team, with Hiller and, when Freddie Anderson was their starter. They did go to the conference finals one time with John Gibson. But, hopefully he'll have another chance, to make a cup run just because he's an incredible goalie.
And since the Blackhawks have made such a surprising push for the playoffs, they are not looking for rentals at the deadlines. They will just, I guess, continue with their so-called rebuild, even though they kind of faked everyone out of that. So, we're just going to see the same Blackhawks that we've been seeing all year long.
Yeah, I think they're in a state of mind where it's like, if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. I don't think they're too focused on the rebuild, nor do I think they're too focused on, competing for the Stanley Cup, just kind of in the middle. And we'll see in the coming years, how their core starts to shape up after the Kane and Taves era.
And the Flyers' goaltending problem still remains because they got goal support. They won 3-2 against the Islanders, and the Islanders' win streak actually got snapped there, I think, at 9 games. But it's that goaltending problem for the Philadelphia Flyers still remains. Carter Hart, he's 22 years old, so you can see that maybe there was too much pressure that was put on him.
Yeah, he came in and people expected him to be good, but not as good as he really was. In his first 2 seasons, he was incredible. And, especially last year, in the playoffs when he was going head to head against Carey Price, everyone kind of knew at that point that, Carter Hart was an elite goalie. And this year he hasn't really been putting up elite numbers. So, an off year is bound to happen. And maybe it's good that it's happening early in his career.
We spoke about the Panthers goaltending. Well, the Predators actually snapped the Panthers win streak at 4 games. Bobrovsky is heating up. Him and Krueger are, 2 great goalies and 2 stories to follow along this season because Krueger's making like 3/4 of the salary that Bobrovsky's making. So, it'd be interesting to see what Florida does in the expansion draft.
Yeah, one of them's going to go. I honestly think the strategy for them is probably to protect Krueger just because I don't think Seattle's going to, take that contract on. But I think, the most interesting part of the tandem for me is they can get away with, going 1A, 1B through the regular season, but, who's going to be the starter come playoffs?
Vasilevsky won his 11th straight game. This is just throughout the week. I had to update this, but what an MVP season he is having. I think he's definitely in the Hart Trophy conversation.
No, absolutely. I think he's been Tampa's MVP, and if they have a chance to win the President's Trophy like they have in the past couple of years, I think Vasilevsky's got to be on the near the top of some people's lists. It's tough. We've only seen it to a goalie one time in our lifetimes. Carey Price in 2015, but Vasilevsky sure is putting on just incredible numbers and winning games for Tampa.
And since we are speaking about the Hart here, that's obviously the player that's most valuable to his team. So let's take a look at Curtis McElhinney's numbers. And certainly he hasn't been a very good backup this season. 316 goals against average and an 880 save percentage. And he's 3-3-1 on the year for his record. So, I guess you could say that Vasilevsky should be receiving a good portion of MVP votes.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to see that. And I think, between him and Fleury, I think, if Leonard comes back and, Fleury starts losing starts, I think Vasilevsky could potentially run away with the Vezina the way he's been playing.
An interesting news bit here from Twitter is Andrei Svechnikov stayed on the ice after the 3-2 overtime loss Carolina suffered against the Blue Jackets. And I think he stayed, and it was actually an hour after the Carolina game had finished. And, he's kind of on a goal scoring drought, only, a couple goals in his last 21 games. And, I guess that's just his mentality is to stay on the ice after the game, get his frustration out, and hopefully he'll start putting pucks in the back of the net more.
Yeah, it's like a Stefan Diggs moment watching the Chiefs celebrate. Svechnikov had, I think, 37 points, 20 goals, 17 assists, something like that in his rookie year. And then last year, he just kind of came and completely exploded. This year, maybe a little bit more down to earth. I still think he's an elite player, but, only 2 goals in his last 21 like you have here. For a guy like him, I think he's got 40, 50 goal potential. So it's interesting to see how he's been struggling.
Colorado and Minnesota. So that was actually quite an interesting game because Colorado finished the game with 55 shots. And I think it was, they had like a 20-shot first period. So that was wild. Another, pun intended, by the way. Another thing that was really interesting is that the Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen line finished with 10 points combined. So, that's the first line. Then you got the Burakovsky, Saad, and Kadri line as the second line, and two lethal units to throw out there.
Exactly. Colorado only a couple years ago, they were the laughing stock of the NHL, but, just such a quick turnaround, and they have, just one of the best lineups, front to bottom, every single line, not only these two, just the third and fourth line, and then every single D pair, they've got solid goalies. I think, Colorado is definitely, one of the top teams for the Cup this year for sure.
Mackenzie Blackwood, got injured in warmup, so that summoned Scott Wedgwood, who got the late start, and he actually did pretty good. He made 40 saves, had a great game for New Jersey, and hopefully Wedgwood can keep up that play to, at least get New Jersey some wins.
Yeah, they don't want to get into Buffalo territory in that East Division. Any goalie, Wedgwood, Dell has played a couple games for New Jersey, I think, and, obviously Mackenzie Blackwood's the guy that they want in that net. But, if anyone's going to get in there and make 40 saves, I think he'll do it.
On Friday, we learned that the Bruins games on March 20th and actually 23rd have been postponed because they have 5 players in the COVID protocol. And it's weird because their game on March 18th or 19th, the first game against Buffalo, it got played, and I guess there was some testing, contact tracing that the NHL did, and concluded that the game should go on. But this is the second time that this has happened to the Sabres. We go back to the whole Devils issue, and that just puts a black eye on the league that they continued with the game.
Yeah, maybe if it was Tampa, the league would have stopped the game before it even started, just so Tampa doesn't go down. But, it's Buffalo, so they don't really care if they get COVID cases over there. I'm joking, of course, but maybe, this is what Buffalo needs, a little second COVID spark, put them in the right direction this time.
Luckily, the Sabres don't have any players on the protocol, so, that's really good. But yeah, I didn't like the decision for the NHL to continue with the game because it made no logical sense. Because if one player tested positive, then you kind of think that, more players are going to test positive since you're around them so often. Yeah,
it's weird. And we had it even in the NFL season, with couple Monday night, Thursday night games. Obviously they got moved and such, but just games being played, even though there's still test results still to come in. It's super strange.
Evgeny Malkin is week to week with a lower body injury, so that's actually a big blow for the Penguins' second line. And I believe Jared McCann's centering that second line with Kasperi Kapanen, and I forget who the other winger is. And I think they rotate Brandon Tanev in actually at second line. So, that's a big blow for the Penguins and a hole that they desperately need to fill.
Yeah, it's super tough, and it comes at a bad time. They were seeming to, get things on track and, potentially have a really good regular season. And, it'll be interesting to see how they recover from losing, one of their key players. Another loss is Joey Decor, who is out for the rest of the season with his leg injury. It's a lower body injury, but it really sucks because, as a part-time Ottawa Senators fan here, I loved watching the Sens simply because, Decor was starting, and, he's been a highlight for me this whole season. So, hopefully he gets a speedy recovery. I want to see him back on the ice soon. Absolutely. We've talked about him in the last couple episodes, but he's been solid this season, and it's tough to see him go out, and hopefully he can come back stronger than ever. And actually, the Capitals are on a hot streak right now. They're tied for first in the East Division. They're 11-1-0 in their last 12 games. And, Ovi scored 2, which extended his goal streak to 5, but that was snapped on Saturday. Either way, the Capitals are playing hot hockey right now. They're on fire, so watch out for them. Season, I feel like they figure it out. And now with Peter Laviolette, they're doing super solid, and I think they're going to continue this. I think at the start of the season, a little bit of shakeups, but now that Ovi's getting on the board too, he struggled with goal scoring a little bit at the start of the season, but to go on a 5-game streak is going to help his confidence and keep the Capitals rolling. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they lost actually 6 of their last 8 because they won on Saturday, shutting out the Flames. And it's been a tough stretch for them, It
does raise some concern. And it seems like, Leaf fans were so confident that they had the division locked up. Now they're tied with the Oilers. So, the first place in the North Division is now back up for grabs.
Yeah, like all the Leafs fans, giving me crap when the Leafs beat the Oilers 3 games in a row. It was at that point, I think, good karma was coming my way, because the Oilers, since that 3-game set, I think are one of 7 of 9. And then, the Leafs are clearly the opposite.
Leonard got the W as Vegas defeated Los Angeles. And I'm not sure if you watched, but Leonard, there was a press conference that Leonard did, and he basically had to tell the reporters that, he had to speak out publicly about his concussion. And, I think people were kind of worried that, his mental health might be of an issue again. And, I feel like that's kind of wrong in a way, because he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt when he does speak out about mental health.
Exactly. One of the ambassadors for the game in terms of talking about mental health. I know, the players within the league respect him so much. And I think the Masterton is the award. I'm not too sure, but that's the one that he won a couple seasons ago. Just a great guy. And it is unfortunate that these assumptions are being made, when a guy is going through a hard time as is.
The St. Louis Blues defeated the San Jose Sharks and ended their 5-game losing streak. And sometimes you need that little bump, or you need that little, against bad team to play against, to gain your confidence back. And hopefully they can go on a solid stretch coming into the next week.
Exactly. It was Binnington's first win, I think, since signing his 6-year extension. Binnington's like a hot and cold goalie. Obviously we saw in 2018 how hot he got, in that, last stretch of the game, carrying them to the cup. So hopefully it's a, good win for Binnington to get back on his feet, and the Blues can start winning some more games.
On Saturday, Braden Holtby got the start after 18 days of rest. That's almost a little bit too much rest for a goal, if you ask me. But, Demko has played stellar, so he deserves, 100% of the whole net. This was just because it was back-to-back, and Holtby played solid. No really goals to, blame him about, but I guess you could say that he should be saving, a couple screenshots. Anyway, Montreal won over Vancouver in the shootout. So Holtby, coming off of 18 days of rest, playing solid.
Yeah, no, 5-4 shootout loss, unfortunately, lots of goals. But for Braden Holtby, it was kind of a split start, if not him getting more of the starts at the start of the season. I'm not sure if, he was injured or whatnot, but, with how good Demko has been playing, it's hard to not, keep Demko in the net. But, benefit of the back-to-back, Holtby's able to get back on the ice.
There was a major lineup change in the Leafs game. Zach Hyman was demoted to the 4th line, and Wayne Simmons was promoted to the 1st line. So, I guess that move did work out in the end, because Hyman scored. Simmons didn't do much since it was only a 2-0 game. But, Jack Campbell got his first start since February 27th. And, like we've been saying, he shut out the Flames, snapped, a 3-game losing streak for the Leafs. Hopefully, the Leafs get on a roll here, because this race for the North Division is going to be tight. It's going to be fun to watch.
No, absolutely. I think all the divisions, we've discussed, they're going to be exciting. It's interesting to put Hyman on the 4th line, because he's the kind of guy, I feel like, a coach never has to have any doubts with him. Every time he gets on the ice, he puts in 110%. He blocks shots. He plays through injuries. Just an incredible player. And I feel like him and Simmons play a very similar role in terms of their physicality and, kind of grinder sort of style. It was interesting. And he ended up scoring, even with the demotion.
Well, it's weird because, Hyman has really good chemistry with Matthews and Marner. So that was really weird to see Hyman on the 4th line.
Yeah, maybe spreading the wealth for Sheldon Keefe, trying to just, get all 4 lines producing. But, yeah, interesting move for sure.
Derek Broussard got his first career regular season hat trick in a 5-1 win over the Anaheim Ducks. If we remind ourselves, in 2015 in the conference finals, he played for the Rangers at the time and actually had a hat trick in Game 6. So, it's great to see Broussard get the hat trick. He's not really known for scoring 3 goals in one game, or known for getting X amount of hat tricks, but, he's getting that depth there in Arizona, which they need.
Yeah, we've mentioned Zibanejad already, and then, we mentioned Broussard in the trade. So what are the odds that both of them, make headlines, both of them score a hat trick, within the same week? It's nice to see for Broussard. that trade to the Senators, he had a solid stint with the Senators, making the conference finals in 2017. And then he was a deadline rental in 2018 to the Penguins. And that's kind of just, where his career took a little bit of a slip. He's bounced around a bit, been on a lot of different teams, on the Islanders. He was on the Avalanche briefly. I think the Panthers for like a couple minutes, at the deadline, he got flipped twice. But, it's just nice to see him scoring 3 goals no matter who he's playing for.
The Habs snapped 2 curses in one night, 2 birds with one stone. The first one was with the reverse retro. They were winless, wearing that jersey. And actually, they finally won past regulation. They're 1-9 past regulation. So hopefully that brings good, karma to them. Hopefully that brings some good times, because having 9 loser points, it definitely sucks. And it seems as though they're going to make the playoffs based off that.
Yeah, 9 loser points, still 9 points, but obviously, you want to have a better success rate, when the game goes to overtime, just because, if you can win those games more than you lose them, it's going to put you at an advantage. At the start of the season, the Habs, I remember probably 10 games in, people were saying, the Habs, they have no regulation losses yet. And then people, I guess they weren't focused too much that what wasn't happening in regulation. But good for them to be able to get on the board in the reverse retros and in past regulation.
The Rangers snapped the Capitals' 7-game win streak, and obviously the goal streak for Alex Ovechkin stopped at 5 games. But like we've been mentioning, the Rangers are playing some of their hottest hockey, and it's coming at the perfect time as we're entering the second frame of this shortened season. And I'm certainly excited to see how well the Rangers do, because, Georgiev and Shesterkin are out right now, I think. So Kincaid's going to get most of the starts, and someone who hasn't played the majority of the season, right? Like their 3rd string goalie on the depth chart is getting most starts.
Yeah, it's good for the Rangers. And like you said, they're getting hot at the right time. It seemed like they had a lost season, especially when Panarin, had to step away from the team. But, they were able to rally. And like we mentioned in a previous episode, they had a winning record without Panarin. And now you throw them back in the lineup, and that just, really helps your team. And it's going to be interesting for the Rangers to see if they can, kind of replicate what they did in the second half of the season last year.
The Avalanche shut out the Wild and actually win their 6th straight. So, another hot team there. And it's almost like no one's stopping the Avalanche, because Grubauer, again, another goalie who's playing such solid hockey. I think he has like 119 fantasy points in our league. So, he's one of the best goalies in the league this year.
Yeah, exactly. I think, there's just been like a lot of incredible goalie play this year. It's just he might be getting a little bit overlooked, with guys like Vasilevsky and Fleury. But, he's been playing incredible and a huge part of the success in Colorado for sure.
On Sunday, Matt Roy signed a 3-year, $9.45 million contract extension with the Los Angeles Kings. The AAV is $3.15 million a year. I think he's going to be a big part of their future. Such a solid defenseman playing top 4 minutes. And from what I know, he's averaging 19.5 minutes time on ice. He only has 7 points in 24 games, but I think he's going to be a major part of their defenseman once Doughty graduates.
Yeah, a 3-year deal, and it's not too expensive. LA's got money to spend. I guess, with Kopitar and Doughty on their payroll, they're paying, around $20 million for those 2 guys. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad contract whatsoever. And I think, for people that don't watch LA Kings games, Matt Roy definitely is a top 4 defenseman. And I think, as the Kings maybe start to get more and more into a competitive team again, people are going to realize that Matt Roy is as solid as his contract shows.
And LA still finds themselves within that, race in the West Division, or, the Pacific Division. They're 5 points behind St. Louis. So if they can get some, string some wins together and get some outside help, they're certainly, worth questioning if they're sellers or buyers at the deadline.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting season for them. Their goalies have been solid, and they've had guys step up, throughout the lineup. They kind of have a blend between, veterans, you got guys like Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Drew Doughty, and then, the young guys coming in, stepping in and making an impact, even though their number 2 pick is playing in the AHL.
I agree. And, to build off your goalie point there, Cal Peterson has been huge for them. I think he's going to be the goalie of the future for sure. 2.54 goals against average and a 922 save percentage. He's 5-6-4, sorry. But, the LA Kings actually ended the Golden Knights winning streak at 5 games on Sunday. So hopefully they're using that momentum to carry them into the next week.
Yeah, for any right-handed goalies out there, Cal Peterson, his glove is the right hand, so definitely an interesting thing to see on the ice. It looks a little awkward, but he's able to make those saves. 9.22 or 0.922 save percentage, and incredible numbers. And he was good last year. They were one of the hottest teams I remember before the pause. I think they were on they won 8 of their last 10. And then, obviously they weren't good enough to make the bubble. But, definitely a solid piece for the future in Cal Peterson.
I know that the Oilers submitted a plan for fans, but another Canadian team submitted a plan for fans, and that's the Montreal Canadiens. And their plan was to have around 2,000 to 4,000 fans in the stands. Hopefully all goes well with COVID in Quebec and Montreal and that surrounding area for, fans to get into the stands, because I know Canadian fans and Canadian teams are dying to see people in the stands, because American teams, are basically selling out buildings.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's nice to see that a Canadian team's finally getting on the board. We've been talking about, Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts teams, just, getting these fans back. But it's nice to see, someone in the North Division, because there's been some fun hockey and, no one to share the game with the players.
Connor McDavid, more like Connor McJesus, he's hitting 60 points in 34 games. He is hitting another level, or I guess this could be the same level. I don't know how you want to put it, but, I think he's going to finish the year with 90 points. I'm going to go under 100. I'm just saying that random number. I think he's going to get 30 points. I'm probably going to be way off. He's probably going to completely destroy me, but I'm going to stick with 90 points.
Yeah, even 90 points is solid, and not a requirement, but like you look at players and you look at stats, and 100 points, that's a pretty good season over 82 games. And the fact that he has a chance to potentially hit it in 56 just shows how incredible of a player he is. And like you said, Connor McJesus, my buddy Curtis, who I'll shout out here, was talking about how McDavid's been insane, putting up insane numbers, and I said, no, those are just McDavid numbers. Obviously, as a joke, he's just been incredible. And seeing someone be able to put up, junior-like stats in the NHL, especially in the modern day, is just insane. And, Connor McDavid, continues to just, keep everyone in awe.
And a series for both of us to watch this week is the Montreal Canadiens and Edmonton Oilers series. Montreal can improve their race to try and get to the third position or even the second. And, if Oilers win 2 of 3, because they play a 3-game set, if the Oilers win 2 of 3, they could probably cement themselves as the number 1 team in the North Division.
Yeah, it'll be big for them. The last time that these teams played, they were much different Habs teams. I remember at the start of the season, the Habs pretty easily handled, the Oilers, 2 losses that were just, no fun to watch. So it'll be an interesting series to watch, now that the Oilers are, second in the division and the Habs are, fighting to stay alive.
And thank God the games are in Eastern time, 7 p.m. EST. That's 5 p.m. Mountain for Edmonton Oilers fans. But thank God they're in Eastern time. I like the Eastern time games. They're a lot earlier than me trying to stay up past 11 p.m. watching Vancouver and Montreal. That was a grind. But yeah, thank God Eastern time.
Yeah, exactly. When the Oilers were in the playoffs in 2017, I was in grade 8 and it was 1 a.m. and it was only the second intermission. I'm like, geez, this is the life of the Oilers fan, I guess.
Columbus and Chicago, speaking of playoff races, are battling out for the 4th in the Central Division. It seems as though there's a battle for the top 3, like we mentioned, with Tampa, Florida, and Carolina. And then those 2 teams are kind of clustered to battle it out for 4th. So it should be a fun race to watch there in the Central.
Exactly. And I think, if Dallas can start to figure things out, they obviously made it to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. They could potentially fight for that 4th spot as well. But it seems as if it's up for grabs at the moment.
And before we get to Pegs' prediction, we have to go over the weekly Paycast power rankings from Zach Hogan. So let's get to it. At number 1, he has the Edmonton Oilers. At number 2, he has the Toronto Maple Leafs. At number 3, he has the Winnipeg Jets. At number 4, he has the Calgary Flames. At number 5, he has the Vancouver Canucks. At number 6, he has the Montreal Canadiens. At number 7, he has the Ottawa Senators. And personally, it doesn't make sense, logically speaking, why the Canucks are ahead of the Canadiens, because the Canadiens dominated the Canucks. Like, we're talking the Habs went 6-0-3 against the Vancouver Canucks this season. So Montreal, actually Vancouver, finished up their series. So Montreal will never see Vancouver again this season. So obviously Montreal should be ahead of the Canucks. The Flames, I think they've been pretty good under Daryl Sutter. They played good against Toronto, but they just couldn't solve Jack Campbell. I'm going to still put the Jets over the Maple Leafs. I'm going to put the Maple Leafs at third. The Edmonton Oilers deserve to be first. All right. They deserve to be first. That's fine with me. I'm going to put the Jets at second, Maple Leafs at third, and I'm going to put the Habs at fourth. Call me biased, but, despite the overtime losses and, the 09 pass regulation, the Habs have still been getting points to remain ahead of the Flames and Canucks. And then I'm going to go Flames as the fifth, the Canucks as the sixth, and the Senators as the seventh.
Yeah, I actually probably agree, team for team with Hogan's list. Obviously seeing the Oilers in first, brings a smile to my face. So we'll see how long that stays. But I think the Leafs right now, they still are a solid team, but the way they've been playing, I don't think they deserve to be number one in the power rankings. Jets are solid as well. And then, other than Ottawa, I think, with Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary, you really could place them anywhere, and I could see the justification for it. I think Vancouver, when Demko's in, is probably ahead of, Montreal at the moment. But, when Holtby's in, and obviously he was when they lost on Saturday, we'll see. But I don't have a lot of complaints. Also, you mentioned that the Habs and the Canucks finished their series. So for all you fantasy owners, if you have Tyler Toffoli, there's no more games against the Canucks, so it might be time to sell high.
Yeah, exactly. And, Toffoli is set to miss the whole Edmonton Oilers 3-game set. So that's huge. Like, that's a big blow for Montreal because he's the leading scorer, if I'm not not mistaken.
Goal scorer. Yeah. Like 100%. But yeah, no, absolutely. That's a big blow for the Habs, and hopefully the Oilers will be able to take advantage.
So times for Pegs' prediction. I went 5-2 last week. I'm not too sure about you, but going over my predictions, I have the Devils over the Flyers, the Blackhawks over the Panthers, the Red Wings over the Predators, the Lightning over the Stars, and the Avalanche over the Coyotes.
You like the Devils, you like the young core. You pick them in a good amount of them. I respect it. Stay with them. I'll go with the Flyers, that's my way to maybe get ahead of you, so that, we don't have the same one. Cause I think, pretty much there's not a lot of disagreeing the rest of you. I think, Blackhawks over Panthers, maybe that's a little bit of a questionable one. I'll go with the Panthers with that. Red Wings, that's questionable too. But you know what? I'll jump on the wagon with you for that. Predators, it's fun to beat up on them. I'll go with Lightning over the Stars and Avalanche over the Coyotes as well.
Well, I should mention that, I picked the Devils over the Flyers simply because the Flyers are slumping hard. So, given they're slumping, I'm just going to take the Devils. I thought that was an easy one.
Yeah, but with Mackenzie Blackwood and such, I don't know. I think the Flyers are going to, really bring their game and, hopefully be able to rebound.
Well, I'd like to thank Nolan Thode for joining me on another edition of Down to the Wire.
Thanks for having me, Pags.